pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You're on. 10.
All right, everybody. Welcome to There we go. All right, everybody. Welcome to the February 10th, 2025 Jackson Township Planning Board meeting. This meeting, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, has been properly and adequately noticed in all the places prescribed by law. Madam Chairwoman?
Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernstein? Mr. Marzo?
Here.
Mr. Heller?
Here.
Mr. Riker? Mr. Rogers? Mr. Treamer?
Here.
Ms. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Weingart? Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Dr. Campbell?
Here. I spoke with Councilman Bernstein earlier this evening. He will be having the same training tomorrow night, so he figured it was probably wiser that he attend the council meeting for this evening. Let's have a motion on payment for voucher for recording secretary, please.
So moved. Sullivan.
Second, DeMarzo.
Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes. Approval of the minutes for the January 27th regular meeting, please. Looking for a motion.
Motion, DeMarzo.
Second, Sullivan.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers? Mr. Treamer?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes. Now we have resolutions. We have 3 of them.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2025-05, resolution of the Planning Board of the Township of Jackson, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, granting preliminary and final major site plan approval and preliminary and final major subdivision approval with required variances for 6 new residential building lots and 1 environmentally sensitive / open space lot for MWNJ 13 LLC, Block 17101, lots 9.07 and 9.09. Eligible to vote are Mr. Heller, Mr. Treamer, Ms. Rose, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan, and Dr. Campbell.
We'll accept a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve resolution.
Second, Heller?
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mr. Treamer,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes.
Resolution 2025-06, resolution of the Planning Board of the Township of Jackson, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, granting preliminary and final major site plan approval with required variances and design waivers for a 3-story building with an office floor area for 15 Leesville, LLC, Block 12001, Lot 1.01. Eligible to vote are Mr. Heller, Ms. Rose, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan, and Dr. Campbell.
Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution. Sullivan.
Second, Heller?
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes.
And the last one is Resolution 2025-07, resolution of the Planning Board of the Township of Jackson, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, granting minor site plan approval with a design waiver and amended minor site plan approval for the conversion of an existing single-family dwelling to a private girls' school for Shalva High School, Inc., Block 23001, lots 14 and 15. Eligible to vote are Mr. Marzo, Mr. Heller, Mr. Treamer, Ms. Rose, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sullivan, and Dr. Campbell.
Motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve. Sullivan?
Second, DeMarzo?
Mr. Marzo,
Yes.
Mr. Heller,
Yes.
Mr. Treamer,
Yes.
Ms. Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan,
Yes.
Dr. Campbell.
Yes. As far as the master plan goes, we're still awaiting finalization of the affordable housing information from the attorney in the township who's in charge of that. As soon as that's finished, and it's a process, that will be going to the engineer on that, and then we will be meeting as a committee, and we'll announce a public meeting. This evening, we are going into executive session for a workshop and information on the religious land use law. And we have informed the attorney for our one application to be here at 7:30, and we'll begin our regular meeting with the applicant at 7:30, and we will invite the public who is in Zoom and the public who is here to return at 7:30 when we're finished with the executive session. I'll look for a motion, please, to go into executive session.
So moved. Sullivan?
Second, DeMarzo?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm sorry, ma'am, if I had seen you there earlier. All right, we're back on the record now. Welcome the public on Zoom. We're sorry it took a little longer to have that workshop than we expected, but we are all the better for it, and we've learned a great deal. Mr. Pfeffer, you're on.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. First, I just want to take the opportunity to thank everybody. I know we were before the board a little more than 2 weeks ago with an application that the board had indicated that they were in favor of the concept, as it's a permitted use for a warehouse with some ancillary office space, but there was some major concerns having the docks for the warehouses fronting on West Commodore. The board did indicate, they were willing to work with us to make some revisions on that, even that evening, but we felt it was probably better off to step back, properly revise it, resubmit it, and we thank your professionals who definitely worked quickly to review those plans and to get us review letters. With that being said, the application is very similar to what you saw. We did put a lot of testimony on last time. Again, it's an approximately a little bit shy of 65,000 square feet warehouse building with 7,000, a little more than about 7,700 square feet of mezzanine office space. Just to give the board just a reminder, that office space is only there are 6 bays for the warehouses, and those office spaces correlate to each of the warehouse spaces. There are no separate entrances, and I believe Mr. Shea did ask us as a condition of the approval that we would agree that that would not be standalone rental space, so we agree to that as well. The main changes, as discussed, we rotated the building, basically flipped it around. By doing so, we do need a few additional variances. Particularly, I'll run through them, and then I'll have our engineer and planner come up and put the testimony on. But we did create some front yard setbacks. Again, we are a corner property. There are some, the layout of the property is somewhat unique. So we do have front yard setbacks of approximately 72 feet and change to Patterson Road and 79 and change to West Commodore, where 100 feet is required. Additionally, there was some discussion, additionally, we do need a 10-foot variance for parking within the right-of-way, where 20 feet is required, and that's just on, I believe, the Patterson side. Additionally, there was a question as to parking. There's a question if we need 1 or 2 parking spot variance, but in speaking with our engineer and planner, if the board were willing to increase our impervious coverage. Right now, we do not have a variance. We're under the 75%. If they were willing to go up to 78%, we do have the room to add the additional parking spaces, and we will not require the parking variance. Finally, and this was just something that we didn't get to at the last meeting, are just some sign variances. Again, the ordinance allows for the one sign, the one pylon sign, that one we have, and we will comply with the 80 square feet. We then are just asking for 6 individual signs for each unit above the name, and then there will be 1 additional address sign that may require, and we'll have testimony about this, for the height of where the location on the building. And that's just going to be an address of the building sign. So with that, that's the overview of what we're seeking. We'll have Mr. Portnoy come up, we'll have him re-sworn in, and then we'll go from there.
So we're removing the parking variance?
Yeah, I just want the
Yeah.
testimony. There was a question if we were 1 parking spot short or 2, but we do have the room to add those spaces. We just would then need to ask for a increase of the impervious coverage, which
Gotcha.
we don't have a variance for at the moment. We're under the 75%, but if the board would go up a few percentage points, we could add the additional parking.
So it's going up 3 percentage points.
To 78%, yes.
All right, Mr. Portnoy.
Good evening.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spell and last for the record.
Joseph Portnoy, Portnoy.
All right, we've seen you a few times. Does the board
Yes.
accept your credentials? The board accepts your credentials?
Thank you. Good evening. I know we went through the testimony on this, whatever, as much as we were able to, so I'm going to focus now on the changes to the layout, circulation, and related items. Do you have the exhibits? You pull up the rendering exhibit? You have the next one? No, this is fine, yes, perfect. Yes, thank you very much. Here we go. Thank you. Okay. So, as you can see, it's a similar project. It's a proposed warehouse with mezzanine space. We've rotated the building to put the loading area in the rear and the parking in the front along West Commodore. With that change, there's a minimal change in the footprint. Was previously 64,620, now it's 64,740. There's a reduction in the mezzanine space because the mezzanine used to be along the longer side of the building, it's reduced to the smaller side. The front yard, with shifting due to the odd shape of the lot, there's a lot of tapers and curves along the West Commodore frontage. We need this shift triggered a variance, front yard variance to Patterson of 72.15 feet, where 100 feet is required, and 79.32 feet to West Commodore, where 100 is required. We're still compliant with the side and rear setbacks. And we do have a 10-foot parking setback to West Commodore. The Patterson, we're complying with the 20 feet, but there are a couple of spaces over here which are within the 20-foot setback to West Commodore. Our coverage is still our building coverage is still compliant, but as noted, our pervious coverage, as shown on this plan, was 74.4%, just under the 75 that's permitted. We also kept this. To keep that. I'll explain that when we discuss the circulation, and the parking. But any additional impervious would trigger a variance. That's why we noted that to add additional parking spaces, we will need a few percentage points. I'll discuss how we get to parking and circulation. Height still complies. In terms of circulation, now that we've flipped the building, the trucks will be entering the rear of the site with a truck turnaround. That's similar to what was proposed on the adjacent warehouse. The trucks, we will agree, as discussed last time, we will restrict the trucks from making a right turn onto Patterson, so trucks will be restricted to left turn only onto Patterson, and they'll need to come back down to West Commodore. We have a separate car entrance, two-way entrance onto Patterson for cars, and we have a driveway onto West Commodore for egress only for cars. The driveway onto West Commodore is subject to county approval. They're discussing with a traffic engineer. He said that he thought that the county may want a right in, right out instead of just the egress, but there definitely would not be a left turn in. When we're maintaining, right now there's a turnaround for trucks, which could be used for fire trucks as well, but we're still maintaining the fire truck emergency access around the east side, and on the west side, even though we separated the trucks and the cars, we kept this open as a one-way, 20-foot wide for fire access, for fire circulation around the building, and that's also contributing to that impervious coverage. Alternately, it's possible to make that grass paver as well, which would not need the impervious coverage variance, but we know the board wanted as much of the fire access paved as possible. Okay, most other things we've gone through. Just on parking, the updated parking calculations with the 64,740 square foot warehouse at 1 per 200 space per 1,500 square feet. It's 43.16 spaces. For the office space is 7,703 square of office space. That's 38.52 spaces. So there was a rounding error on the plan. We rounded, they both got rounded down. The 43 may be rounded down, the 38 goes up. So we would need at least one space, one more additional parking space. So which we're not seeking a variance, we would add that to the plan. Okay, everything else is pretty much the same. We did relocate, we just touched on utilities. Utilities are still the same. We're proposing to connect a water main that's being brought up Patterson. And that we have relocated. Previously, the septic was in the front corner. We moved it to the back. The stormwater management, we have a surface infiltration basin along Patterson. We propose subsurface infiltration along the south side of the property and east side of the property, and porous pavement in the parking lot. And that will be, in order to get this turned around, we do some preliminary analysis. We'll be supplying the full calculations to board professionals. And for landscape and lighting, it was noted that the board professionals noted that we do have some waivers for some of the parking, some of the parking along the property lines, which were noted in the professional's letter. We have a 5-foot parking strip instead of a 10-foot parking strip, and along the eastern property line. I also do want to touch on the signage. The architect will go into more detail on the signage. We did not show signage on the last, when we were here before, but since then the architect has designed the signage. We will have a monument sign. Location would be in the front of the site over here. The intent is placement to comply. The area of the monument sign will comply with the ordinance requirements, and height will comply. And the architect will testify regarding the building-mounted signage.
Any questions for this gentleman?
My question was, we had discussed last time about...
Are you on the microphone?
Yeah. The grass pavers. Again, we have a 90,000-pound fire truck in this town. I mean, I don't know how the board feels about that, but it's a bit of an issue.
Then we have to consider the impervious issue, right? And we're between, excuse the expression, a rock and a hard place on discussing the impervious issues. If we request a cement driveway there, we're really over the impervious. That causes quite a problem.
Well, you also have a building that could be shrunk down and said it's not, but, you know, I mean, again, this is my personal issue. We're shoehorning something huge in there, and, you know, we're at the maximum, so we're bending, but nobody else is bending. I mean, there's no sidewalks, there's no safe area for evacuations. You know, as the fire department looks at it, you know, my fire department head looks at it, so, I mean, it's something for the board to consider. I don't know.
Let's say that there were a fire, God forbid. Can fire apparatus function on those pavers?
The problem is not so much functioning. I mean,
Stabilizing, I guess.
yeah, I mean, they have, it's called the tormentors, the outriggers that come out. You're picking up a 90,000-pound truck, so they're gonna have to certify that there's a compaction and it can hold it. The issue is, it's a 47-foot-long fire truck with tandem axles. So when it turns, those two front tires become plow blades. So as it turns in around that building, especially like a situation with today's, after the rain all weekend, they come in, turn, it could bury that truck right there. So it is a safety concern. Is it guaranteed that could happen? No. But it's not like your car where the geometry in your steering makes the car not fight the wheels, where this is a heavy, heavy truck.
My
And will dive
concern,
in.
I guess, Mr. Tremor, is precedent. If we make this a precedent, then we are going to have to make this a precedent for every other building that we approve. And we are really up against it with the impervious coverage. That's, it's all ordinance, yes. What do you think? That's a good time for you to give us some.
I'm going to play lawyer for 1 second, even though
Thank
I'm
you.
not supposed to. You understand that you were only talking about this particular application?
Correct.
And all applications are heard on their own merits, correct?
I agree.
So to the extent that the applicant has a yield that requires variances here, they've made accommodations from their original design to make it a better design in the eyes of the board members. And that's the reason we're entertaining some of the variance relief that's here this evening. And that's why we're having a conversation about whether or not to increase or decrease the amount of impervious on site. In other sites, you start from the beginning. Give us a conforming application. With a conforming application, we'll make a determination of what's best for the town based upon the subcommittee report. So if the fire report comes back and says, listen, we're concerned that we need to be 25 feet away from the building, we have to have access along all four sides, and we have to have a place to put our outriggers out to fight a fire, then those areas probably have to have a different pavement section. So again, to the extent that we either get comments from the fire department, or the board says, you know what, the applicant's been reasonable in their accommodations as it relates to the design, so if we need to go a little above and beyond in terms of relief for whatever, setbacks, impervious coverage, you know, it's their burden to bring us something that we can approve.
So then my next question would be, did the fire department make any suggestions regarding this particular application?
That I have no idea.
I don't believe they did.
So there was,
Quick,
if I could just respond to that one,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
So there was a letter dated July 19. I just do point out that there were no comments about the pavers. The original application had the same pavers along the side. They did not call anything out. And I also want to point out the project across the way had the same pavers as well. And again, believe me, we understand safety and we don't want to cause any issues either, but we are using all the materials that are approved and safe.
So but if we could just address this real quick. So do you have a pointer on you? Yeah. Just point out where the pavers are.
Right there, green.
Okay, that's
That
a
green
green strip. All right. So we can kind of cover this in one fell swoop. So, Mr. Tremor, so based upon the law, I just went over this with the township attorney, with the township engineer, ironically, because he had a similar issue in a different town. So how the law of this works out is that as long as you, I think it's 270-degree axis around the building, right? So it doesn't have to be full 360, but it's got to be minimum 270, and there's various subtests regarding all the different elements of how and why and all that. I could put a memo together for the board and put that all together and make sure everybody's on the same page with that. But in this instance, it looks like they gave us a little bit more than 270. So they're kind of fulfilling the mandates of the state, of the codes and everything that pertain to the fire circulation. So I know we want, in a perfect world, 360. And sometimes we don't get that every single time. And yes, to be fair, the applicant is maximizing their yield here, which every applicant likes to do in given situations. But we do have a significant conference, so, and I can't imagine the fire truck wanting to be within 3 feet of that building either, So that's just food for thought. That's the kind of legal test that we have to work with. It's really the 270. And I can put together a whole memo. I just went over this with the township engineer. so we can.
That's as per the township code as it stands
No,
now.
that's pursuant to the state code, there's a whole, it's 3 or 4 different guidelines that go into that. It's rather complicated. We can.
And then, and maybe where things might need to be addressed is with the fire department. If the fire department is telling us as a board that this is acceptable to them, then we have to listen to that.
Well,
And that's what they have told us on this project.
there hasn't been any significant changes over the years, which it's in the process, like our master plan, to be updated and brought to current standards.
Yeah,
Trucks are
and when
bigger,
that happens,
buildings are
then-
bigger.
When that happens,
Yeah.
we'll be able to address that.
No, that's fine. Mr. Shea put it
Thank
on
you.
record, so now
Appreciate
it's
it.
something that can be addressed. And
Yeah, and we can, I'll break it all down to the board, I'll put it in a memo to everybody just
Great.
to see kind of the logical flow. But that's kind of what we have to work with at the board level.
So
That's the
my
sandbox.
next question for the board is, would you prefer to grant the impervious coverage increase of 3%? Or lower the parking spaces that force the impervious coverage?
And if I could, I just want to, just to give the board full clarity, there was we didn't get into the exact testimony. Mr. Peters' report, I think, called out that we were 2 spots short. Again, our testimony, I think, is that we're 1 spot short. In any matter, I'm not trying to cut hairs here, but the reason why I was saying if we increase a few percentage points on the impervious, either way, we can give at least the 2 spots, if not maybe an additional one. So I just wanted to clarify that for the
Good, all right.
So
Mr. Sullivan?
At 3%, I don't think that's a problem. If we were talking a much larger percentage, I think then we'd have to really discuss it, but I think we're splitting hairs at 3%. I think that's fine.
Reasonable, so.
It's reasonable.
So you would say that we should grant the variance for impervious coverage?
Yes.
Any other thoughts from the board members on
do we
this?
ask why we didn't take 3% off the building? It's a huge building. Why don't we just take 3% off and? So it's that shoehorn thing again. We just keep on jamming the maximum in there, and you're coming to us, making us give to you, but what'd you give to us? You turn the building around, but that's what we require. I mean, why don't we take 5% off the building and give a little more leeway?
Any other thoughts?
One quick question. Regarding the site travel and turning radius, I believe the plans call for a tractor trail not to exceed the length of 65 feet. Are we going to put limitation signs at the entrance? I've had experience with trucks going up to 72 to 78 feet.
Yeah, we'll be providing truck circulation plans, and, based on that, anything that'll exceed that will not be permitted, will be restricted.
And we would agree to, as a condition of
You
approval,
make
to
that a
sign it.
condition, yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you. Next.
Yeah, we just have the architect.
Well, why don't we
Yes.
have the, I was just, yeah.
Do you want to wait until after we're finished with everything and then vote on the resolution compliance?
Well, it would be.
All right, on
the
this
impervious
issue.
or the,
All right, on this issue. Mr. Shea, why don't you use the wording on how you'd like it, how you'd like that to read?
so it would be, the board's got to make a decision as to whether they want to grant the parking, or they want the applicant to seek the parking variance, or they want the applicant to seek the impervious coverage variance. So if you just want to do maybe a roll call as to which one we want the applicant to seek, and then the applicant can seek that variance from us, and we can subsume that into the vote in the end,
Okay,
that may be the easiest thing.
all right.
Just a brief question. This strikes me as incredibly piecemeal.
It's because, you know what we're probably doing, Mr. Wall, is because we said last meeting that we would be open to variances if they flipped that building. We made it very clear that we would be more generous with our variances. Now we have to decide which variances. I can see where you make a point, and it's going to be this one or this one.
I'm just sharing, it's a bit sloppy to me. And Mr. Tremor saying, why is the bulk of this property not addressing some of these issues itself? I don't have a particular destination on it, but it just seems choppy and sloppy.
But we're trying to be neat and democratic.
Just quickly, we did ask about the warehouse, since there are no tenants identified yet. We did ask if you would be willing to decrease the size so that we wouldn't have to grant some of these variances. I really appreciate that you flipped it as we asked, but there was no further commentary, or when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, the square footage has not changed at all. So I'm just wondering why we have on either side, on either end, the warehouses are so big without any
So again,
identified tenants.
Right. So the previous plans were, we believe, more efficient for many different reasons. With that being said, the board asked for it, we have no problem, so we comply with that. We did lose some square footage in the office space that are the mezzanine level there was a decrease in the square footage on that end. Also, I just wanted to clarify one other item. I did confirm with our planner and engineer. The increase in the impervious, we don't even know if we need to go up to the 78. We just wanted to be careful. We need to add, again, if we go by Ernie, and Ernie's usually always right, we're 2 spots short. Whatever the impervious won't exceed the 78. It might only be 1 or 2 percentage points as opposed to the 3 to get to the 2 parking spaces. Again, we also, our testimony is that we only leave it 1 spot short, but we have, like I said, no problem providing it.
Why don't you say something?
So I'm assuming, looking at the map here of the project, that the 2 spots would probably be on the left-hand side, probably in that space above the first entrance. So if you put the pointer
Yeah, so
like up, there,
Yep,
down,
down.
right there. I'm assuming that's probably where you're going to have to put the 2 spaces. I can't even see that probably even being more than 1% change. I mean, to me, it's worth the accommodation.
Yes. Microphone, please.
You asked for a little bit of feedback from the board. I would concur with the vice chair over there that I think if what Joe is, the calculations Mr. Sullivan is making, it would probably be closer to 1%, and I'd be okay with. I would rather a impervious coverage of variance than a parking variance.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Marzo?
I'm sorry, what am I?
Impervious or lower
Parking.
parking spaces?
Oh, impervious.
Impervious. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Bernstein. I should have called on you first.
Impervious, sorry.
Okay. Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Rogers, impervious or parking?
Impervious or parking, which one do you want to say?
I'm trying to understand what we just said. Is the board recommendation impervious?
We're asking you. Do you,
Okay.
we're
Mine would be
voting.
impervious.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tremer?
I don't think we should do either. We asked them to make the building smaller. We were very clear last meeting, so I don't think either should happen.
Ms. Rose?
Impervious.
Mr. Wall?
I'll pass on the question.
Mr. Sullivan?
Impervious.
Dr. Campbell?
Impervious. And that would make 1, 2, 3,
That would be
4,
impervious. Yeah.
5. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Want to swear?
Good evening.
Yeah.
We'd have the architect sworn in.
All right. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Michael Milliman, Millemann.
All right. And your credentials, even though I know you?
Licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 1999. I've appeared before this board many times, as well as others in the state of New Jersey.
Welcome, we accept your
Thank you.
credentials. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the plans and elevations. So this is the ground floor plan. As was mentioned earlier, we have 6 tenant spaces. The majority of the square footage is for warehouse use. We have storage, small storage spaces along the frontage as you enter into the building, and then traverse upstairs to the office spaces. We do have one office space downstairs to require, to comply with the barrier-free requirements. We also have toilets for the warehouse use located in these areas here. Along the rear of the building are our loading spaces. Each of these spaces have 2 loading docks. The large one here on the left has 3 loading docks. One of them is going to be a drive-up, an inclined ramp, and then the others will be traditional loading docks. And there's a small mechanical space in the back corner of the building to host sprinkler set and other utilities. We can go to the next illustration. Is going to show the mezzanine plan. So again, the majority of the spaces up here are going to be office spaces, and then we do have one small storage space, and that was to equal out the square footage from the office that we had to put downstairs to comply with the barrier-free requirements. Again, upstairs we do have break rooms and toilets for the office spaces. And then the next illustration is the elevation. So the bottom illustration here, the building is going to be a tilt-up concrete panel structure. So what we did was, in combination with the panel score lines, is introduce some geometric patterns to break up the facades. The stair towers are noted here. They're 3 feet higher than the remainder of the building. The building height is 44 feet. We have glass entry into the office spaces, and then there's windows, glass windows for the office spaces above. I'm sorry, these are the glass entries into the into each of the tenant spaces. So the rear of the building, showing the loading docks, is this illustration here. We have some clerestory light that's proposed going into the warehouse space. Along Patterson, again, we're using the similar geometries with some windows that are going to be in the facade to let some light into the warehouse space. And then this is the east elevation here. No windows proposed on that one, as it's not going to be seen much at all. We did prepare a rendering. Just real quick in here too, it's hard to see here, but there are tenancy signs that are going to be located to identify the different tenants into the spaces. So each one of those signs is proposed a little bit under the maximum of 80 square feet per use or per space. And that we'll be asking for either a waiver or a variance for, because the ordinance allows 1 signage per building, but since we're going to have 6 tenancies, we're going to want 1 sign to identify each of the businesses.
Is the sign just going to be on the glass, is that?
Just above the...
Yeah, just above the
above the door?
glass.
Yeah.
So it'll be on the wall. There'll be wall-mounted signs. So this is the illustration looking from the corner of West Commodore and Patterson. And again, you can see the, I didn't mention on the elevations, but you can see it better here, the canopies that are going to be going into the building to cover up the doorways. And again, all glass and metal openings. The colors, we haven't exactly identified the colors, but again, we're just looking to bring some geometry, painted facade to break up the long mass of the building and to introduce a little bit of interest into the building.
Could you point to where the signage is going to be, please?
Yeah, so they're going to be between the canopies. So between the canopies, there'll be a sign to identify each of the tenant spaces. So there'll be a total of 6. And we can add that to the rendering.
Mr. Peters, what's your thought on that? Since it's code, you know.
Well, 80 square feet's a pretty big sign for each unit. Other than I want it, I hope we get more testimony about why it's needed. Because quite frankly, just think about, you drive past it, this isn't something you need to see from the interstate. You know, you put a sign up, it's 2 foot high, it's 6 foot long, it's 12 square feet. You put up a 4x8 sheet of plywood, political sign on the highway. That's 32 square feet. This is 80 square feet. For 6 consecutive buildings.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, I don't.
It's nice to ask. I'd like to hear some justification to make it 6 times what's the permitted size.
That's fine, I just want to make sure we clarify. We're not asking for 60 square feet per unit. It's just that the ordinance reads it's a total of 60 square feet. We're just looking for, and I'll ask Mr. Mudd to give some square footage per each unit.
Yeah, so the total of the 6 signs will not exceed 80 square feet. So the ordinance allows up to 80 square feet, and the total of the 6 signs will not exceed the 80 square feet.
But then
So
you
there'll
want
be
to
about
put
12
more
square feet
signs.
of-
You're asking for
Correct.
more signs.
That
number, right?
quantity.
You're only allowed one.
Correct. Yep.
Right.
So there'll be about 12 square feet
Couldn't you
apiece.
just number each door, and that would let your, people coming to deliver know what, or going to the office know what door it is? I mean, then it's not a bunch of signs that have to constantly change depending on who your tenants are. If you just put number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, then it never changes.
Right, potentially that's a solution. This was more of a convenience to help your customer identify if you do have somebody visiting your space where they should be going.
But there's no sales taking
Correct.
place out of
Correct.
those spaces, so there's
Correct.
no need to advertise what the company is, and then you don't have a sign problem.
Yes, we can confirm.
That's fine.
How's that sound, everybody? Okay, we'll go with number.
Numbers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay,
And we'll talk about the other signs you want.
sure, yes, yes. So the other sign that was identifying the building itself with the number was going to be located in this area here. Again, it's not on this rendering, but again, it's just identifying the building sign.
It's the street address sign.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I hate to jump in. The board simply needs to know, do they need to grant variance relief?
Right.
If they don't, it's fine, it goes in Mr. Shea's resolution, they go to the zoning officer to pull a permit, and it's okay. If they need a variance and they don't get it here, they're not getting one. So I understand they might not know, but this is, either they come back, this is the place you get the variance from. So
So
either they ask for it or they don't, and if they ask for it, it's got to be specific.
now what do you need? As far
Well,
as,
Yeah, so the ordinance limits the height of the signage to 25 feet. So we would propose something a little bit higher, probably coming up to this score line here, which is approximately 35 feet. So I can keep the sign to 80 square feet, but the height of it, again, for safety, somebody identifying, trying to find the building, we would ask for relief from the height of the sign.
That sounds reasonable.
Why does that sound reasonable?
Because if you're driving a truck, a large truck, and you are looking for the sign where it is, it seems like they'd need height.
I would suggest
see
the only
it.
thing that they're looking at Google is all they're looking at, and it's bringing them right precisely where they need to go. If you want Jackson to appear to be an advertisement at 35 foot, then you should approve it. If you're looking to have Jackson look like a consistent rolling advertisement at 35 feet. Other than
Same as
that,
everything else, we got to be consistent. I
it just
agree with
makes-
Mr.
that
Wall.
makes absolutely no sense.
So you think that it would be just fine to leave it at the height that is recommended under the ordinance?
I think it's taking a courtesy of the board of suggesting something looks civilized in Jackson, and then skewering it for variances that you don't need anyway, all due respect. Why don't you just have something that has no variances and call it a day? That's why all this, now, and there's no concept, by the way, there's nothing you can see.
No, there's
That
nothing we can
illustrates that
see.
you're making Jackson into an advertisement at 35 feet. So you're already handicapped,
Right.
right? So I failed to see, I understand try to lever it and get that, I just don't understand the point. It just seems like an awful lot of time
Good
squandered
point.
for things that you have, it's nice, looks nice.
What is
Thank
the
you.
ordinance?
But you're faced with just kind of guessing what it looks like and carrying on.
So if we don't need, if we
I mean,
don't
that's
need
up
the
to the board.
It'll
variance,
stay at
Yeah,
20, it'll
then
stay
we'll-
at 25 feet.
Correct.
fine,
Yeah, we'll
good point, thank you. No
comply with the
variance,
ordinance.
so you don't need a variance,
Correct.
thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to share, the numbers, in kind of defense of the applicant, the numbers are kind of, that's a bit dry, you know, that in and of itself. So I'm not saying that the board shouldn't be considering something that's a little bit more civilized looking, rather than just 1, 2, 3. It just goes back to the board. So I think just try to strike some common sense of what is fair to the community, fair to the applicant, fair to the folks that are developing the property. And common sense, I would say. So
I tend to agree
I wouldn't
with
necessarily keep it compliant to the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's such a loading dock look. I mean, that's not necessarily something you're looking for. Just have something civilized, it's common sense. I don't know why it's so elusive. Now, I don't mean you. I mean,
I understand.
since I've been on this board.
I think that would help the salesman and people picking something up, Jackson residents possibly, in identifying which space to park in, what building to go to, and might not use Google quite enough.
If you stick to the ordinance on signs, stick to the ordinance on signs and put up what you want, as long as it doesn't need a variance. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Thoughts?
All right. All right, so now that we've spent the last 5 minutes on signs. So just to be clear, so we're keeping the main sign at the ordinance height, 25 feet. But then, Mr. Wall, were you recommending that we go back to putting the names of whatever businesses are on over the doors, or?
If I'm a tenant, I think it would be nicer that I'm not saying, I'll see you at number 3. And well, we have an issue with the number 3. We never liked the number,
Well,
Yeah,
so going back, so that would be a variance that we would have to grant them because that would exceed
For
the scope
quantity.
of
Yes.
the 80 square feet. So if you guys are, so what they're saying here is that each one of those signs that are going over the door would be 12 or so square feet in diameter for like the name of the building above, I guess, each door or to the right of each door. And because the 25-foot high sign is what, approximately 60 square feet or something like that, the combined total of all that would be over the 80 square feet. So if we grant them the 12 square feet per door, we're exceeding the volume per the ordinance. So
Okay, then don't exceed the volume for the ordinance.
And just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So just to clarify, on the sign ordinance, I believe it just says 80 square feet, talks about one sign. That's where the confusion comes. We're not looking to exceed the 80 square feet. We're just looking to break up the amount of signage.
Right, so
But
it's
if
just,
the board,
it would just be in the
we'll do what
ordinance,
the board
or
wants.
just had a variance that we'd have to grant
Yes,
you. But that's,
correct.
what they're looking for just the 12.
And every application's different, but there's a Lowe's that I'm familiar with, it's in Holmdel, 165,000 square foot building, undulating berms. The planning board was involved down to the font of the sign. It's a destination location. You know where it is, you know where you're going, you don't need something at 80 feet, or you know you know where you're, but if you drive by Route 35, you can hardly see it's there. And it's 165,000 square feet. Like, it's that kind of more elegant design that it's so frustratingly elusive with so many applications, and so I apologize, I mean, but respect the board's time, but I think, and maybe it's a mutual frustration, but there is a way to do this right and elegant and look good and increase the value of the developer's project, not decrease, increase the value to the tenant, increase the demand of the site, and meet exactly what the folks in Jackson are looking for, which is a civilized environment. So I'm just giving you a different type of example that's far bigger than this, I think.
I have one question.
You have a font that you want?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I have one question. The windows we see in the front there for the second story, the mezzanine, what's the height of those windows? Where are we talking about, like, at the top of that window? What's that height?
Just to clarify, you mean, right?
Yeah, I'm just curious. as to-
Yeah, just want to make sure
Yeah.
we're.
It'll be about 8 feet above the mezzanine floor level.
Okay. But how high is it in total of the building itself, the front of the building?
The front of the building is 44 feet.
22, that put it at about 22 feet
22 feet, all
at
right.
the top. Yeah.
Halfway.
Half, all right, so, and our sign ordinance for the street numbering is 25 feet?
What, the height is 25.
The height, yes.
Height,
Can't exceed the 25.
About the same size as the windows. Right?
a little bit
Little
below.
bit, yeah.
Okay, I just want to picture this in my head. Yeah.
A decision that I think Mr. Wall is correct about, that if you stick within the ordinance on signage, then we don't have to create variances. So find a way to make it fit.
That's fine, we're good either way, just clarify, are we talking about the amount of signs or the square footage of the signs? Total, we agree, we have no issue. The height, we agree, no issue. I'm not sure the board, however you guys end up voting, just if you can clarify if you want the numbers above the units or a name, and if it's a name, we just need an increase
Then they
from
need a variance.
the one sign. That's all I'm asking to clarify. Thank you.
Number is sufficient. Let me tell you about what my concern would be. You're going to have to constantly, as the years go by, change the signs, because there will be different owners or renters, or however you're developing this site. If you have numbers, that never changes. If you have signage, who's in that particular location, then it's constantly changing. So you're going to have different colors, different shapes, different sizes, different fonts, different, it will be a constant problem for the owner of the building to deal with that, where if you have numbers, there's no problem.
We're good either way. I just asked however the board votes, just enumerates that. So there's no question for the resolution, that's all.
No question. You won't need a variance if you stick to the size. Stick to the size.
That's our testimony.
All right.
Oh, and one other thing I just want to add, should the board vote in favor of the application, I know Madam Chairperson and the board had discussed last meeting, talking about once the site starts to get developed, about adding a signage to tell the public, block, lot. There was a bunch of list of items that you had
Yes.
listed, and this applicant, even though it's not on your checklist or an ordinance yet, this applicant would agree, should the board vote in favor, we will agree to those conditions as well, and we ask that be part of the resolution.
The board is looking for a coming soon sign that would be with a color rendering of what's being built on that site from the time the land is cleared until the CO. Once the CO is given, then the sign goes away quickly. But this is to help the public, so that the public knows what's going on that property. And I think it's good for the public, and it's good for the developer to show what is being built on a site. So this
Agreed.
is a new thing we're looking for, and you're our first applicant, and this will give the public an idea of what's coming. So something like this
Right, with the block,
would be
lot,
there.
address.
With the lot and block number, the address, so that if somebody wants to call town hall, they know what it is.
Yeah,
With that it will be something that lets the public know what's going to be on that property.
So
And
this
I
applicant
did-
has no
I did
objection.
suggest that we put tree replacement numbers, and here's the reason. We get constant concern from residents about how much is being taken down. But we also know on this board how much you're planting. So if you say, we're going to plant 150 trees on this property, we're going to plant 125 bushes on this property, that the public knows that there is a tree replacement that's taking place. So it's not going to be just totally no trees. They will understand that.
We have no objection to the installation of the sign and putting that as a condition of the approval.
Great.
I just asked Mr. Shadow, do we need any language for a sign, any variant, or it'll just be within setbacks, it's temporary in nature?
Temporary, a
it's
temporary
until-
sign.
Yes.
And I have cleared this with Mr. Purpuro.
Perfect.
He
So
agrees that he thinks
we have
it's a
no
good idea.
objection whatsoever.
Great.
Quick question. We want to consider specifying the size and color
Yes, it's 4 by 8.
and any color that's used so they're not, one's orange, one's green, one's purple.
This is just a temporary, while the building is being constructed, with a
No,
color
I'm talking
rendering.
about the permanent signs.
Oh, the permanent signs. Permanent signs, when the architect decides upon the coloration, then that's up to them.
Okay.
Okay? Good. Good. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any type of signage at the roadway to identify what's going to be in the building, or is it just going to be the number on the building that's going to be?
On the
Pylon.
monument sign?
There's one pylon sign.
Pardon?
There's one pylon sign,
Okay,
and that'll comply with the
Okay.
sign ordinance.
I thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions for this gentleman?
For the architect, I have one question. The mezzanine appears to only have one means of egress. Is that acceptable from a safety standpoint?
Yes. Everything is going to comply with code. So one means of egress is required based on the occupant and the exit travel distance.
And the fire department approved?
Oh, they did?
Yes. Yes, yes. And they're fireproof divisions. Correct.
Separation assemblies.
Separations are fireproof, right?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Real
Mr.
quickly,
Quinn.
you had indicated that there was a second floor storage area, storage unit?
Yeah, so if you go back one slide.
It's for one of the units.
Yeah, it's for
correct?
one of the units. It's this one right here. So there's one unit that is dedicated for storage, and that'll be used for the unit below. And essentially, what that was, why we did that was because we needed to comply with the barrier-free requirements. I need an equivalent office space on the lower level. So,
Which is why if you go back to the other, the one exhibit before page 1, you'll see that that same unit has office space on the first floor.
But that area, that storage area, is included in the office space for the parking calculation.
Yeah, it's all included for the
Gross
park.
floor area
Yeah.
includes that.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from our planner or our engineer? Any other questions or comments you'd like to make at this time?
Just a comment on the overall project. I think the applicant heard the board, their comments, to reverse the building, which I think is good. The variance relief as an accommodation or with kind of working with the board. But I'm still struggling a little bit, kind of where Mr. Tremor was going, that you heard the comments of the board, flip the building, everything's good, but there was no adjustment to the square footage. And it seems the applicant's coming in, will give you a choice of variances or waivers. Either it's impervious or it's parking. Well, if you lose 400 square feet of the office, everything goes away. So I'm just leaning towards that, maybe there's just a little bit too much here, and maybe they're asking a little bit more of the board as far as variance or design waiver relief that is warranted. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Peters?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
So if you took that shape that is not a rectangle and you made it a rectangle, all your problems would go away.
So respectfully, to Mr. Klee, if we took off some office, which is, again, mostly mezzanine, it's the same footprint. Your footprint's not changing. The mezzanine is upstairs. So we could shave off a couple square foot of office space. And again, it's a question if it's one or two parking spaces that are needed. We could also break out, if we wanted to go through, and I could bring Mr. Portnoy back up, which I'm not looking to do, and start talking about breaking out each of the sections of the building, including the staircases and whatnot, and how we calculated all the parking. And I could make the argument that we don't need any parking variances as is, but we're not looking to nitpick. We think that this is a fair project. We did come in, we did listen to the board's requests, we did rotate the building. The indication from the board before we left was, what would you like? And it was indicated it was okay with seeing some variances. And I'll be honest with you, I thought the variances that we're asking are really not, when we're talking about 79 feet, where 100 feet is required. 100 feet, if you walked it out, it's a large distance. We're not trying to squeeze in something that's not, but we're now talking about, hey, just chop off a section of the building. I mean, internally, I could lose a couple square feet of an office, and that parking goes away as well. But the building from the outside is going to look exactly the same.
You
So
have a
it was-
triangular bay. Why couldn't you just take 10 feet off that and just flatten that corner? That would have given you the percentage instead of going after office space. We did make it clear last meeting, make it a little bit smaller.
Overall, we lost square footage.
What'd you lose, 10 feet?
We lost in the office space.
Okay, but that's inside. You chose to lose inside. You can make more office space. You have massive warehouse space, especially that one that's triangular. I mean, you're being very persistent. We're not changing. Well, guess what? I think you're wrong. I think you should be able to take 5, 8, 10 feet off that one corner right there, and that would fix everything. You wouldn't be asking for all this stuff. I mean, it seems to be a constant pattern here, so, I mean, this is my rant, but
Any other thoughts? How about, are we conferring?
Let them.
I guess we're having a conference. By the way, I think the building will look very nice. It has some interest. It has some roadside interest. It's not just boring. And it's facing the right.
Yeah, and that was what our main issue was, and that was addressed.
Mr. Pfeffer.
The applicants indicated they'll remove 300 square feet of office from the application. We don't need a parking variance, and we don't need impervious coverage variance. Which is what the engineer had recommended.
All right, so what is being suggested is that that in order not to have any variances,
No, not yet.
not
Yeah,
yet,
if I- Yeah, yes,
Right,
no.
but that's
So
what I
the
wanted.
variances that we'd be seeking, which are still, as we indicated, the 2 front yard setback variances,
correct.
which are listed in the report. Sorry, let me just turn to the page. The minimum front yard setback to Patterson Road of 72.15 feet, where 100 feet's required, and the 79.32 feet to West Commodore Boulevard, where 100 feet's required. The 10-foot parking variance for within the right-of-way. We are not seeking we are no longer seeking the parking variance, we're no longer seeking the impervious coverage. So those are the only variances. The signs we took care of. So we're just down to really the front yard setbacks, which again, we are a corner property. The board asked us to rotate it, we've complied. So those are the 3 variances that we would require.
Okay. All right. Anything from our professionals before we have Mr. Pfeffer wrap up? Yeah, all right, all right. And I don't know, should we have an open to the public who's not here? I don't know
Yeah,
if
we
anybody
have
is
to
going to.
do it
We have
anyway,
to do it
to say-
procedurally.
Yeah.
So I motion to open to the public for cross-examination of these witnesses on this application. Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the cross-examination of the public. Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
We'll take another one for comments from the public.
I move to open this to the public for comments on this project and this project only. Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
Seeing no one come forward, I move to close the public portion of the comments for this application. Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
Thank you. All right, that's procedurally done. Wrap
So
it
yeah,
up, please.
just real quick to sum it up, the applicant has heard the board. This applicant has come before the boards in town and does build a nice product. The reduction of the footprint of the building would not change your front yard setbacks. The two main variances that we have are due to, again, we're a corner property, and the parking within the right-of-way, again, it's only for a small corner section that the park, like a few parking spots are within. The applicant has agreed to reduce the size of the office space so that there's no other variances needed other than the front yard setback and the parking within the right-of-way. And with that, we would agree. I think there were just 2 conditions, Mr. Shea. One was that there would be no renting of the office space to a separate tenant. They would all be ancillary to the warehouse, the correlating warehouse use, and that the signage for the new request to notify the public as to what is coming here. I don't think there were any other stipulations. If there were,
Yeah,
please,
if I'll include them into the resolution.
I believe that's what
And
we.
you will get the new revised plans for the office space to our
Yes.
professionals?
Yes,
Good.
of course,
In a timely manner. Thank you.
always. And with that, I would just ask that the board vote in favor of the application. It's a nice rateable in the area that's permitted, and it's contiguous to other warehouses.
All right, we'll seek a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the setback and a right-of-way variance.
Second, Bernstein.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Treamer?
I'd be a hypocrite if I voted yes with all my complaints on this thing, so I am a no. I believe that the building should have been made just slightly smaller, that 3 or 4%, So I am a no.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Campbell?
Yes,
Thank you.
congratulations, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to,
Motion to close.
Close.
Sullivan.
Second, Bernstein.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.